Hello and welcome to another edition of Ask George after day two of the second test between Pakistan and England in Multan. Chief correspondent George Dobell phoning in. George, I don't know, best day of the series so far? It felt incredibly competitive. Both teams had a real bite at it today.
I thought was it the fourth day and the first test was kind of extraordinary. That
Extraordinary,
last
yeah.
90 minutes there as well. But it's funny you should say. I do think the game's more fun when the bowler's a bit on top. And equally,
Right.
it was the fourth evening of the first test was the only time that happened until this evening. Yeah, it felt as if the pitch went suddenly. I guess we won't know for sure whether that's the case until this time tomorrow. But that's how it felt, and I think Pakistan are very much in the ascendancy here.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. I don't think we're not getting any pleasure out of watching the runs build up. Let's get to some questions then. And Bobby Smith asks, now the competitive Test cricket has broken out, can we play the third Test on this pitch? Be careful what you wish for, Bobby. We're not that far
Yeah,
away
I
from
mean,
that.
I hope not, and I think not really. Look, I don't want to be churlish about the Pakistan performance, but I think they gambled on winning the toss on a used pitch, and you look at the balance of their side, the fact that they have one seamer. If they lose the toss, they're in real trouble. But they won the toss and they've made it work for them. They batted well and they bowled well. So they deserve credit for that. But it does seem that the toss was disproportionately important. I don't think that's churlish to say. I think most Pakistan supporters would agree with that. I hope they would. So is that okay? I don't know. It was fun this evening when the ball was spinning pretty sharply and Sajid was bowling. I mean, he's a fun cricketer, isn't he? I don't know that the balance they've got the balance right still in this series. It was it's gone very quickly, and those first inning runs when it was much easier to bat just seems so important and so much easier to score. You would think batting fourth would be very, very tough. So I don't know, is that what we want? I think there's a balance between what we've seen so far. I don't think we've had a good pitch yet.
And also, I think conditions to bat in the evening, particularly that last hour, were probably the trickiest it's been in the whole series. Like it wasn't. You tell me,
Oh
it
yeah.
definitely wasn't as warm. Didn't the commentary team was saying it wasn't certainly as warm today. A bit hazy around. Lights are on at the end. Like it wasn't ideal. Like it's far from ideal conditions. Not
There was a lot of
perilous.
pollution. There was a lot more pollution today. Don't know why. But on the on your phone, it would tell you that the pollution was over 100 in that scale. I think it was sort of wood smoke or arable fires. But I don't know that for a fact. I don't know whether that had a role or not. I don't think so. Look, my suspicion would be that Pakistan spinners are better at knowing these conditions, and they started to bowl slower and they got more out of the wicket. But I also suspect that the wicket has got to a sort of tipping point and it's doing loads more. But we'll see, because England are going to be bowling on this pitch again shortly on the third day, and it will be a really interesting test of them to see if they can get anything like the same amount of purchase as the Pakistan spinners, and that will be revealing. We're in new territory with this surface. We haven't seen used pitches like this in Test cricket, so I'm finding it quite unpredictable. But it did look as if, with 90 minutes to go or so, we reached tipping point on the surface.
I thought it was really interesting. You talk about England have got to go on this pitch as well. I thought it was really interesting. Ben Ducket said some intriguing things at the close. Said that basically it sounded like he was he was telling England spinners, this is how you need to bowl on this pitch. Like maybe don't bowl at the stumps all the time. Maybe bowl a slightly wider line. I thought that was really interesting. He was talking on Sky about perhaps Pakistan have have shown England how they might want to go about it when they get a chance in that third innings, particularly the innings that Pakistan have, that's undone them so many times before.
Yeah, he did. It did seem like that, but I don't think he was criticising England spinners, but I think he was saying what worked for
Yeah.
them against him. And he is a slightly peculiar batter, you know. He's idiosyncratic. You know, he basically said this evening that the spinner's natural length is what he wants them to bowl because he can sweep them. So therefore, they have to draw him wider and get him out of his comfort zone and get him driving, which is obviously, I mean, he's got a lot better at it, but he's not quite as good. And he was out driving a wide ball. I thought what you saw with Shoaib, who, you know, is clearly feeling his way back towards form, is that he was turning the ball down the leg side a lot to right-handers,
Mm.
and that feels a bit frustrating. So you know, all these things and England's DRS errors as well. Sometimes they're to do with an experienced wicketkeeper, and England don't have an experienced wicketkeeper. They have another player who's learning their trade. Or anyway, there are definitely things they could learn there. They've got a big test on the third day to see how much better they can bowl. But I think it's a long way back in this game. I mean, really, England needed to take a first innings lead, I think, because I think batting fourth would be very, very hard. But we'll see. You know, it'd be a dull game if it was predictable. But I mean, I'd be pretty surprised if Pakistan didn't win this one.
Yeah. Speaking of Ben Duckett, Michael asks, did Duckett need to rein it in and play for stumps? I'm not sure. I mean, after scoring a pretty breezy 100 or 50 and then a breezy 100, feel like that's just not the way he goes about things, and that's not the way England
Yeah,
go about things. They never play for stumps.
I mean, you're asking a
Rarely.
vegetarian. Sorry, you're asking a lion to be a vegetarian, aren't you? With Ben Duckett, he
Mm.
is completely committed to that way of playing. It's frustrated me a few times that he's got out short of 100 because I think he deserves those landmarks. But he is committed to it and it is serving him well, and maybe you don't want him to change. I think it was more that the pitch started to do a lot, but as I say, it's hard to be certain on that. Yeah, obviously, England would love him to be there on the third morning. Of course they would. But he is very committed to living by the sword. And of all of them, he's probably the most unconventional of all of them, isn't he? And he does it so well. I mean, I found it deeply frustrating when he was caught on the point boundary. Was it at Lord's before lunch on the first day, reverse sweeping? But he does play it so well. And he's actually, you know, he's averaging well into the 40s in Test cricket as an opening bat. And I think this was the slowest of his Test centuries, you know. But I think it might still have been in the top eight. Someone told me of England's Test opening quickest centuries, even though it's his fourth slowest, something like that. Anyway, which tells you how much he and Zach Crawley have changed the game. So you know we can't fall into the trap of saying, as a bad coach would, go out there, score at 10 and over, but don't get out. With Ben Duckett in particular, he's committed to the way he plays, and he is making it work for him.
Cricket Stations asked a question on a similar theme, but an interesting one is Ben Duckett England's best player of spin after Joe Root, and could he potentially bag an IPL deal for the upcoming season? I
Oh,
think they are separate points. That
they are,
being
but I think he
made up, but a
should.
very interesting one.
Yeah, look, I think really good point. I think he should have played in England's World Cup semi-final match in Guyana against India. Do you remember he was there? He was in the squad and he didn't play.
Mm.
And equally, Moeen Ali played but didn't bowl. I mean, England made some odd tactical decisions in that game, and it felt like that was the game they had bought Ben Duckett for. I think he would be a really good IPL signing. He plays the ball which doesn't bounce brilliantly. He hits the ball in unusual areas. He makes the bowlers bowl different lengths. He's so short, so good square of the wicket, but also has the ability to play straight and in the V. I think he's a terrific player. Is he the second best player of spin? It's a really interesting question because he might be. I mean, you would hate to bowl to him, but equally, I suspect you'd always think you had a chance. But I don't know what he's averaging in India. I mean, I should know that off the top of my head, but he's done brilliantly, hasn't he? Sorry, not in India, in Pakistan.
Mm.
And in India, he played. earlier this year, he played possibly his best Test innings yet, 150 odd. So in Asia this year, I can't remember what his average is, but it would be decent. I think a really good shout. Is he England's second best player of spin? I don't know. I mean, Brooke didn't have a great day today, did he, Harry Brooke? But he'd have a good shout there as well. I think
I thought he was really
it's
interesting.
not Ben.
I thought he was really
I was
interesting
just going to say it's
saying
not
that.
Ben Stokes, is it?
No, no, no. It's not. It's not Ben Stokes. I thought he was really interesting after play today, talking about how he's kind of adopted this sort of Yunus Khan way of thinking, i.e., take two dismissals out of the equation when you're batting. Sweeping as much. I just think whether that works or not, I just think that shows how he kind of thinks about his batting. I think that it's not
Yeah, really.
it's not this instinct. It's not this instinctive. Don't leave anything, hit everything out of the park approach. There is some nuance to it, and it's not just reverse sweeping everything either.
No, no, he left some today. I don't know if you noticed. I mean, maybe it's only one, but he early doors he left one. Um, so I think he had this reputation when he first came into the side. Well, there's several things I want to tell you, to be honest. Alistair Cook said quietly, not in a press conference, but Alistair Cook said to us in Bangladesh right before Ben Ducket made his debut. I remember him saying, "This guy's going to play 150 tests for England." And obviously, it didn't work out great. He got caught. He got found out by the off spinners, and I think he had the reputation then as being a bit of a maverick, bit of a playboy, bit up for a laugh and a drink, and maybe that disguised how hard he works and his passion for the game. And then, of course, he got into a wee bit of trouble, which was nothing really, in on the Ashes tour when he came with the Lions, and there was that incident in a bar with Jimmy Anderson. Something and nothing, but the context of the tour, everything going wrong. England had got themselves into trouble a couple of times, and my own view is they overreacted. But I can tell you this: I mean, it's a public record story now. I didn't tell people; other people were there and they said it, but it's out there now, so I will tell you. They were quite harsh with Ben Duckett on that trip. In fact, I can tell you, I said to one of the coaches, "What are you going to do to Ben Duckett?" And he said, "I'm going to F him up," as the result of what they were going to do to him. Yeah. So I remember I went for dinner or drinks with Trevor Bayliss, and I said, "I think you've been a bit harsh on Ben Duckett. Really, it adds up to nothing what he's done." And he was like, "Trevor's a nice man, yeah." And he went, "Oh, you think I've been harsh, do you? You think I've been harsh?" And then told me this story about Ben Duckett vomiting on his head on an aeroplane between Bangladesh and India when he was a bit the worse for wear. I don't think it was a tummy upset. And Trevor was on the seat in front of him. Ben was a bit drunk and vomited on his window, bounced off onto the head of the coach sitting in front of him. You don't want to be sick on your head coach, yeah? I mean, if you're trying to make a career as an England batter. So
Or
after
assistant
two
coach.
tests, he was. No, he was the head coach then, wasn't
No,
he?
no, but I mean,
Trevor
even
Bayliss.
even I'm not sure this is exclusive
You're
to head
right. Or
coaching.
even the batting coach. Do you
No,
know, generally, as a rule, don't be sick on anyone. That's a rule to live by, okay?
you get that for one
Best
pound a
avoid.
month. That advice
Well, for the month, I think we give this for
for
free, don't
free.
we?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
Um, Headline that. Make that the headline. A rule to live by. So at that stage, I think he had a reputation of being a bit of a maverick, and he went back to county cricket with Notts, and he worked his arse off, and he scored a lot of runs, and I think what you see now, and I think he had to work so hard to not just show that he could play, but show that he had the attitude. And I've got so much respect for that. And there should be no conflict between liking a night out and enjoying the company of other people and also working hard and loving cricket. And he is a cricket geek. Anyway, he's worked terribly hard. He does things slightly his own way. He is obviously quite short and hits the ball in unusual areas, but there's a lot to like about what he does. And he has worked hard to both convince people of how good he is and convince people of how hard he works. So now what you see on the pitch is someone who's so committed in the field. See, I think he's a natural leader on the pitch. He's never talked about as a captain, but I don't know why not. And obviously he leads with the way he plays. It's such a huge part of the way this England team plays is how their openers bat. So I can't even remember the question. I've been talking so long, but basically it was just a huge amount of praise for Ben Ducket, who I think has a really good attitude. I think he is actually the sort of guy who would cliche, would put one beside you in the trenches. Maybe not the sort of guy you want sitting behind you on an aeroplane.
Well, good luck to Ben Ducket in the IPL. We're just going to sign off
Yeah, I mean
with
they should just use that as his show reel. I mean,
yeah.
Christ, yeah.
We're going to sign up another sort of deeper question from Danny. 3 disappointing World Cups in a row across the men's and women's England
Mm.
teams. Are there perhaps deeper issues within the ECB that firing coaches won't solve? I think this is maybe an unfair blanket assessment here, but how do you feel about this? I guess this is in light of England being knocked out of the Women's T20 World Cup yesterday or this week.
Yeah. It's a really interesting question, and I do agree with your response, though, that I think there are issues, but I don't think they're the same issues.
No,
I think just on that game yesterday, I mean, it was a shocking performance from England. I mean, they didn't do themselves justice. They're so much better than that. You know, a lot of credit for West Indies, who really seized the moment and went for it. But England were poor. There's no way around it. I don't think anyone's going to pretend anything other. And they're particularly poor in the field. And, Alex Hartley's raised some questions today, and I think good for her. I thought it was brave what she said. I think a lot of people would have had a lot of those thoughts. I think it's absolutely legitimate that male, middle aged white cricket journalists like me are reticent about diving in on some of those issues. I think it's right that we're reticent about it. Having said that, it's another reminder that there should be more diversity in the press box. It really is, isn't it? Because it probably, I just think it carries so much more weight, pun unintended, that Alex, who's a World Cup winner and female journalist making her way in that field, who really obviously wants that team to do well, is prepared to confront something that is very awkward. And I know from talking to people in that coaching setup that there have been times when they felt that there could absolutely be no body shaming or talking about those issues, and I think that's right. But there's a balance, isn't there? And clearly the balance isn't quite right now. So that's something that they're now going to have the opportunity to look at. And if you want to be philosophical about it, out of failure can be the seeds of success, and it's a wake up call to some of that team. Very disappointing not to reach the last 4, and very disappointing to go out on a performance like that. They are better than that. They're clearly better than that. So they've got to bounce back, and fitness is one of the issues. So there's a massive difference between that and the issues with the men's team, I think. And yeah, that's probably the one to talk about today. Is that fair? But you make a point about. I mean, Matthew Mott was unlucky, I think. But was he the solution? I mean, I don't think he was the problem. But was he the solution? Well, he wasn't, was he?